You're listening to Crystal and Emily on Love Your Shelf, the best librarian podcast in the extensive and highly competitive field of librarian podcasts.
Oh, hello there.
Hello. How are you on this?
Yeah, I was just about to say, what a sleepy, rainy Friday.
Exactly. Hopefully we won't fall asleep talking to each other.
No, I think I need this in order to stay awake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then we'll have to be engaging then.
Yeah.
I'll really work.
Entertain me. Oh, well, what's going on? What you been up to this week?
Well, I was thinking earlier, I don't really have that much. But then I started thinking about it, and actually I've got quite a bit.
Nice.
So, yeah. So,
Hit me. Yeah.
And it's, again, a little bit all over the place, but so am I. So,
Yep.
that's why we have to.
The nature of this podcast.
Exactly. Well, one of the first things that I want to talk about, and maybe have the most to say about, I don't know, is a nonfiction book called 100 Things We've Lost to the Internet by Pamela Paul.
Cool.
And so she's a Gen Xer, and I have a sneaking suspicion that many of our listeners are as well, or about,
right.
In that range. Probably no Gen Zers, but
yeah.
I don't know.
Don't know if we'll ever hit that market.
Yeah. We're trying all the time, though. Not really. Anyway, so this was a really interesting book. It was, and I know interesting is the least interesting thing that you can say about something. So
I always catch myself saying it in response to stuff that you say. I'm like, so interesting. If not interesting, cool.
Which is fine, because that I think that's just the generic term for fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
So it's not really groundbreaking, but there is a lot of truth in it, and I think that obviously to be able to say what we've lost is you have to know what we had before. So obviously that's why I bring up younger generations, because they're not going to know what they've lost necessarily, or they may know like anecdotally or intellectually, but they haven't experienced that,
Right.
And so of course there's 100 things, but I thought I would mention a few of them. Some of them are funny, some of them are depressing, and poignant, but and some of these we have talked about before. So anyway, I just thought that I would go through a little bit just to give you an idea about what kinds of things she's talking about.
Yes, please. I'm always up for this discussion.
Yes, exactly. Just like old people. No.
Oof.
Oh, the old days. Yeah. One of the first things that I noticed is that she talks about how the phone call has been lost.
Yeah.
And I know that I was an early adopter of not answering the phone.
Oof. Yep.
I hate talking on the phone.
Yeah.
And as a teenager, that was probably how I spent the majority of my social time.
Yeah.
On the phone. Like we would have hours long phone conversations.
Right.
But of course, texting and chatting and that kind of stuff took that over. And I am 100% on board with it. I don't want to go back to phone calls if for some reason they're going to make us do that.
So agree. Because again, I think that phone calls, I don't know, it was great for that time in my life. I feel like generally as a teenager, I was more open to talking on the phone, but yeah. Oof, grown.
Yes. And she mentions in that section, each of the 100 things is like its own little short chapter. She mentions Sherry Turkle, who I talked about last week, the researcher who's the MIT psychologist.
Yes.
And she calls that the flight from conversation, which she sort of obviously associates that in a kind of a negative sense.
Right.
Which I get too. And that's why I kind of wanted to say that,
Yes.
I still like conversation. Obviously, we're doing this,
Hmm.
and
Yes.
I'm a chatty person,
This is
but
essentially talking on the phone for us.
exactly. And so, I get that. And you definitely, you don't want to either put down or, negate the importance of like having a one-on-one or group conversation with
Yeah,
people.
right. I mean, it's so easy to isolate if you don't like talking on the phone, and I've had to kind of, watch myself
Hmm.
and yeah, just be reminded that, being social, being around people is a good thing. I mean, it makes me feel
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yes. And like, I think too about the thing about the phone conversation is that it's immediate and you have to have an immediate response. And we're all so busy that a
Right.
text message is much easier to respond to because you can wait 20 minutes or,
Right.
you can get back to it later. Whereas a conversation, you have to block out that time
Yes.
and sit down and you can't have distractions.
Yes.
And that's the thing. I think the thing that used to drive me crazy sort of in that transitional period where people had their and still you see people do this all the time, walking around with their phones on speaker and trying to do
Hmm.
all these things and trying to talk on the phone. That drove me insane more than anything else in
Oh,
communication, is that if
yes.
you're trying to do other stuff while I'm talking to you, I will hang up so
Oh my gosh. Well, and it's one thing if I don't know, doing little things around my house. Like I always have my
well, if
phone.
it's not distracting.
But if you're in public, especially in public, or trying to actually work on something that like requires concentration,
Yeah.
do not try to talk to me too.
Yes, exactly. So that was definitely there's a lot to
Yeah,
unpack with a lot of these, but
sure.
Um, another one she mentions is lost is benign neglect, like by parents.
I was like, wait, by what? That's
So,
funny.
latchkey kids, which I was
Yeah.
one of them,
Hmm.
to a certain extent, you are left on your own
Hmm.
and, you figure it out and you're outside all day in the
Yeah.
summertime and, your parents don't know precisely where you are at every moment.
Right.
And that's really lost because you can track your kids and you can monitor their text messages and you know where they are all the time.
Well,
And
and we're so like ultra aware. I mean, gosh, like true crime is like
mhm.
a trend, like we have
Yeah, we're
in
hyper
all of the,
attuned.
yeah, we have all of the news in our hands and we see it all the time.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I think that sparks some fear as well.
Sure. And I've thought about that a lot because I have a nephew who's a teenager
Hmm.
and he, never had that where you're gone for an entire day
Yeah.
and your parents are like, well, they're out there somewhere,
Yeah.
they'll be okay.
Yeah.
Don't And it I don't know if it's a good thing, a bad thing, just a different thing.
Hmm.
Because there are certainly dangers to just being out and running around
Right.
on your own.
Right.
Um, but I think adults that are my age are like, I survived.
Right.
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Or then there's others who are like, now that they look back on it, they're like, wow, that was
Yes.
so dangerous. We
The
should never let
opposite.
that happen
Yeah.
again. Another one of the chapters is on high school reunions, which is so true because you keep track of all those people all the time. You don't need to
Yeah.
meet again. You're on Facebook.
I
You know what they're doing.
Yeah, when I moved back to Nacogdoches a few years ago, I ran into some people I went to high school with over at Flashback here in town,
Mhm.
and this guy was like, "Yeah, like." But mentioned that there had been a reunion, and it sounds like it was like a few people invited, some other
Yeah,
people, and I was like, well, first of all, it's not really a reunion,
yeah,
and yeah, no. Anyway, it just made me realize that yeah, like my sister is coming up on 10 years since she graduated, and no talk of a reunion.
yeah. It's funny because
Hmm.
the last one that I saw for my school, I think it was the same. It was pretty small,
Yeah.
but. anyway, yeah. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. High school reunions, just the concept of it gave me anxiety
Me,
when I was still in high school.
yeah, right. Like, great. I'm gonna have to prove myself to all of you someday.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. And then
uh,
another one that's mentioned is a good night's sleep has been lost, which
oh,
is totally true. Like I use my phone as an alarm, which I find, you know, I really
ugh,
like that's what I want to use. But
yes.
you have this continuous, they call it continuous partial attention.
Yep.
So that you are awakened by a little buzz or a
Hmm.
something and you're like, oh, do I need to check this? Do I need to see what time it is? Do I need to?
Hmm.
And so you're never just fully disconnected and like let yourself completely sleep.
Yeah. I have to make a point. I mean, even just like if I'm trying to watch a movie or something, I will put my phone on silent and put it underneath something that I can't
Mm-hmm.
see, and just because if I see it, I will pick it up.
Yeah. I try to really do that because I have it with me when I'm sleeping, but I really try to not, like, if I have the impulse, I'll try to not do that.
Catch
Not,
yourself.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then too, wondering about the weather.
Oh
I
man.
laugh at
Yeah.
myself because sometimes I'll be like, you know, getting ready in the morning and I will look at my phone instead of looking out the window.
Right.
And
What's
then,
it like today?
yeah, and then I just laugh at myself like, okay, you're reaching new heights of
Yep.
ridiculousness. But I think that seems to be pretty universal. You know,
Yes. No.
you can look 10 days in advance, and
Yeah. I'm
even though it's
already.
not
Yeah.
really precise, I guess it's
I know. I don't know if it's a comfort thing or
yeah.
I don't know, because I'm going on vacation next week, and I've been checking the weather in San Marcos every
Mhm.
day, and it's different every day, but for some reason I still feel prepared.
Yeah. Well, and another one that she mentions is handwritten letters, and then I
Yes.
think there's a whole separate chapter on like birthday cards and stuff like that.
Oh, yes.
And I miss those.
I
I wrote lots of
know.
letters and I have lots of cards and all that kind of stuff. I still
Yeah.
keep a lot of it. And but then I think about it and I'm not out here writing letters to anybody, so,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
be
No,
the
I
change you
mean,
want to see, I guess.
yeah.
Although I can imagine like somebody getting a letter from me and being like, "Crystal, why?"
What's with the letter?
Yeah. And feeling this weird obligation now. I have to do the same thing. I don't want to do
Right,
that.
right. No,
So I
yeah.
think that's probably what prevents me.
It would have to be like a planned thing. Like, we're gonna be pen pals now. You have to
Exactly.
be in on this too.
Yeah. And I was never good at pen pals because I'm real hot and cold about stuff like that. So,
Yes.
yeah. Well, anyway, so
I'm
that's long
the same
gone.
way.
Another thing that she mentions is eye contact, which
Hmm.
I think I've noticed it in this past year with
Hmm.
masks and Zoom and stuff like that.
Yes, where everything
Because,
is the eyes.
yeah, but then I also realized that personally, and I don't know if this was affecting other people,
Hmm.
but that with the mask on, I was eventually making less eye contact with people because it felt more like you're shielded or something.
Yeah.
I don't
Hmm.
know. It was something that I was feeling. But then on Zoom, I remember too, a year ago when we started doing all these like Zoom meetings,
Right.
um, there was this, you could tell everybody was trying really hard to like look like they're looking at you by looking in the camera.
Right.
And that was disconcerting and hard to
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
you know. And now if you're in a Zoom meeting, everybody's like gazing off, like it looks
Yes.
like they're gazing off in the distance, but they're looking at their
At
computer.
at the screen, right.
And it feels like over this last year, it's really evolved so that there's not that expectation so much.
Yeah.
I don't know. That
How
was just
I'm
my
gonna I'm gonna be paying attention, on the lookout, so to speak, for my habits.
yeah. And then of course this week we're experimenting with going maskless.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that was really different because I felt there was a lot more eye contact. Maybe it's just
Yeah.
more of an
Okay.
awareness. I don't know.
Yeah, man. I will
We'll see.
say my face feels a little naked. I
Yes.
mean, I'm not like mad about it, but I just keep being like, wait, something's off.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of emotion and stuff coming out of other people that
Yeah. And I
or,
have to like
it's
I have to check my teeth after I eat,
oh,
like
yeah,
really
exactly.
carefully. Stuff like that. Yeah.
Um, another one she mentions is movie theaters, which I think is sad.
Oh, I agree.
And maybe that will be something that comes back, but I don't know. With everything on demand and, especially, of course, this past year, everything,
Yes.
movies that would have gone to the theater coming out on demand
Right.
in your home. And
Hmm.
it's much more reachable to have like a home theater system or,
Right.
big TV or whatever.
Yeah. It makes me
Um,
wonder, yeah, if that's
yeah.
gonna stick around.
Well, we're having a movie screening here at the library tonight, so we'll see what
Bring
kind of crowd
Yep.
comes out for it.
Bringing the
But
theater back.
yeah. Then there's just a couple more I want to mention, but one was missing out. And so she
Um,
says that's been lost, like,
yep.
which I kind of see. She said the way she describes it is that FOMO has been
Yeah.
replaced by the knowledge that something is definitely going on without you
At all times.
at all times.
It's
Yes.
not a fear anymore. It's
Yeah. And I kind of feel like that too. It's like, because you can see through social media and everything that there's people doing this and that,
yes.
and they're, taking pictures and they're posting videos and they're,
Yes.
attending
And it
events. And
well, and yeah, I mean it's that like there's a weird guilt with it, if it was something I was invited to and I couldn't make it or didn't want to or whatever, I don't
hmm
know. There's guilt when I see pictures or yeah, anyway.
exactly.
It's a whole thing.
And the last one I mentioned is kind of like a low note, but I think it's absolutely spot on is that we've lost empathy.
Oh, yeah.
And that they're, because people comment all the time about how people will behave on the internet in particular. And then it seems like that carries
Yeah.
over into
Yeah.
your regular
No,
life.
it's shocking. It is
hmm
shocking.
And,
Yeah. And
I
for no
find,
reason, it's clearly without reason or thought. I don't know if you're looking at a YouTube video.
yeah,
The comments are, I mean, like I said, it's shocking and it's thoughtless. And yeah,
yeah. And,
it's so
and I
true.
think, I think now more than ever, I value people based
Hmm.
very highly, very heavily on their empathy.
Hmm.
And I don't know that that
Yeah.
has always been the case. Like I had, I've had friends and known people that I thought were amusing and, great to be around.
Yeah.
That maybe weren't very empathetic, but they were funny or
Yeah.
sassy
Yeah.
or smart or whatever. And that has all those things have taken a backseat to I want to be around somebody that can empathize with other people.
Yes. Yes.
So
Man, that's true.
anyway, so that gives you like a little glimpse into the things that she's writing about in
Yeah.
her
Oh,
book.
how neat. I love it.
But it once again, it's 100 Things We've Lost to the Internet by Pamela Paul, and it's out. We've got a copy of it, so check it out.
Oh, fabulous.
And then I transitioned into after all of that, like getting depressed about empathy. I read The Art of Taking It Easy,
Oh,
How to Cope with Bears, Traffic, and the Rest of Life's Stressors
I'm like,
by
I wrote that. So.
exactly. And it's by Brian King. And he describes it as that he's presenting research based information with a humorous context.
Okay.
And
Here for it.
yes. And so then he talks about how, when he's talking about how to cope with bears, he's describing of, like if you're like anxious
Mhm.
about like coming into contact with a bear, is it are you, what level of anxiety are you dealing with? Are you like worried that there might be one? Are you worried that there's one over there, that there's one
Right.
coming after you? Or
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
he's like talks about how that could be, replaced with a unicorn. It could be anything. It could be,
yeah.
and then he says, if you're going to get all worked up over anything like traffic, whether it's real or imaginary, or what, like your
Hmm.
anxiety about what could happen or whatever, if you're thinking about if you're living in the world of what could happen rather than what is happening,
Yes.
then you might as well be looking out for unicorns because you
Yes.
can't.
I
And so,
Yeah,
go ahead. No.
constantly. I was just gonna say I constantly have to kind of tell myself that, not the unicorn specific part, but yeah, just if I think this could happen, that means anything could happen. So
Right. Yeah, you have to just dial it back and,
yeah,
and that there was a lot of that kind of stuff that obviously I thought that that was a really good way to put it.
yeah,
But
I agree.
as someone who's read a lot of that kind of thing and a lot of, psychology and that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
the rest of the book was a little off-putting.
Yeah.
Because when he's a doctor, and when
Hmm.
he has a doctorate of something, and when he's about to talk about like anatomy in the brain or whatever, he spends a page preparing the reader. Like, don't worry, I'm going to get a little technical here, even
Uh,
though I told you this was going to be
uh,
very relatable, but never
no.
fear, it's so low level, even a dummy like you can understand it.
Uh,
And so it just was really like, okay, just present it. If it's somebody who
yeah, you don't have
doesn't
to
want the
patronize
technical stuff,
me. Yeah,
well, skim
yeah.
past it. And I just
Yes.
don't, I really don't like that in a book.
Yes.
And because it doesn't, I don't think even somebody that doesn't want technical stuff, I don't think they want to be talked to that way.
That's what I'm saying is like, okay, that
Yeah,
I'm insulted at this point.
exactly, exactly. So that's what I'll say about that one. Hit or miss. Some cute stuff in it. Skip the
Sure.
parts of that where he's being, a jerk. But
Yeah, patronizing.
then I read The Woman in the Window,
Oh,
and
yes.
there's a movie that's out right now. It's like one of the top movies on Netflix, I think it's
Yeah,
on.
Netflix.
And um, you had mentioned it,
Right.
and
I've yet
so
to watch it, but
yeah, I picked up the book, and it was not bad. It was the writing was
mhm,
fast paced, so it's like, keep going along at a pretty good clip,
that's good. Yeah.
which I cannot say for the movie. So I picked up the
Mm.
book and read most of it, and then I was curious, and I will I will warn anybody who's interested in this. I looked up the IMDb about the film,
Uh-huh.
and there was something in it that gave away a major plot point.
Oh
And
gosh.
not in like, it wasn't in the summary or anything. It wasn't intentionally done, but I was like, oh, now I get what's going on.
Okay.
And so there was that. But I wasn't going to let that deter me. I went ahead and
Mhm.
watched it. And it's very much like I don't know. We mentioned that it's like a rip off of Rear Window,
Yeah.
because there's a person who's housebound, like spying on the neighbors.
Yeah. Through the
Um,
window. Yeah.
yeah. And in the book, um, the main character says that watching is like nature photography. You don't interfere with the wildlife.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, the rest of it is,
Her interfering with the
yeah,
wildlife.
yes. One of the things I did like about both the book and the movie as a film buff is
Mhm.
that that's what she is too. And so every day she watches a classic film.
Oh, cool.
And so in the movie that you get to see lots of those clips, but in the book she's just constantly like going through all the
Right.
ones that she loves and what
Yeah.
so there was that.
Yeah.
The book also mentions a lot of movies that I really like, particularly thrillers,
Mhm.
and so I thought I would mention the
Yes.
movie The Vanishing, which it was a 1988 Dutch film.
Okay.
So it seems a little obscure, but hugely popular at the time,
Mhm.
and really great, like tense, won all kinds of awards, excellent thriller film where a guy and his girlfriend go to they're on a trip and they stop at a rest stop. She goes in to go to the bathroom and is never seen again. And
Oh.
then years later, he is still looking for her, and
Uh-huh.
things happen from there.
Cool.
And then in '93, they did an American remake of it with Jeff Bridges and Kiefer
Huh.
Sutherland,
Huh.
and yeah, so it's
I
really good.
I think I thought I was more familiar with that than I am. I might be thinking of some other movie, but
There's a
I'm
lot of
writing
movies
it
with a
down.
similar, yeah, with a similar title, but it really kind of both of them. And a lot of people think that the Dutch film is better. I kind of tend to
Yeah.
agree, even though I like the American
Mhm.
one too. Um, they kind of turn the bad guy trope on its ear by doing something really differently with the story. So,
Mhm.
instead of this, like, I won't give anything away, but instead of like this mysterious, faceless villain,
Mhm.
they have a different take on that.
Okay.
So that's all I'll say.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that
Okay.
I would recommend watching before you spend any time watching Woman in the Window. But
Okay. Okay.
which,
Noted.
I wouldn't say that it's bad. Obviously it's very popular, but it wasn't anything groundbreaking.
Yeah, I might put it on while I'm doing something else kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And let's see. So I've got a couple more. I'm still going
Please,
here.
please. I don't have really anything new this week, so please.
All right. Well, I picked up A Thousand Years of Joys and Sorrows as an advance copy, and it's a
Mm,
memoir
yeah.
by Ai Weiwei. And he's pretty much the most famous Chinese artist.
Hmm.
And he's also an activist who's been very outspoken, and he was also imprisoned by the Chinese government 10
Okay.
years ago for several months, and then disallowed from traveling abroad or speaking in public. He was under
Wow.
surveillance for several years. Uh,
Wow.
and there was a documentary in 2012, I think, called Never Sorry.
Hmm.
And he was also featured in a really great series. If people are interested in contemporary art at all, and haven't seen it, there's Art 21, or Art in the 21st Century,
Hmm.
and it's they've showed it on PBS. I don't know if it's a PBS production, but it's definitely been on PBS. And um, Art 21 just covers, like, each episode is over a different artist or
Hmm.
movement, and really, really
Neat.
fascinating. So,
Yeah, neat.
um, Ai Weiwei is extremely interesting, and there's that word again.
Yeah.
Um, but he's uh, well, never sorry. I think is very it's very kind
Yeah.
of sums it up, and he does films.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, look him up. Also,
Yeah.
the book won't come out until later this year, but we will have a copy of it when it does because it's pretty fascinating.
Cool.
And then the
Yeah.
last book that I want to mention, and then I'll talk about a couple of shows,
Yeah.
is a new book by Joshua Ferris, who has written several books. I think the best one, or best known one, is called "And Then We Came to the End,"
Okay.
and this one's called "A Calling for Charlie Barnes." And it's about a guy who's in his late 60s, who had been like a he'd been in finance, and he'd
Hmm.
been like a stockbroker in these big boiler room kind of
Oh,
scenarios.
okay.
And then and then his last decade or so has just been kind of going downhill. Of course, there was a big crash in
Right.
2008 and all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. And it's very Death of a Salesman. Like,
Huh.
he's kind of alone at the end of his life, and
Yeah.
he's been diagnosed with this terminal cancer, and so he's trying to reach out and find some meaning in his life because he hasn't found it through all of this, like, trying to get a leg up
Sure.
in the corporate world. So
Yeah.
I
Man,
have not finished that, but
yeah, I don't know. Typically I like that story. Somebody, I don't know, who takes a hold of their life or,
yeah,
tries to find meaning. And yeah.
it finds some kind of redemption, hopefully.
Yeah, man, like immediately what came to mind was About Schmidt. Is that with Jack Nicholson?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's what came to mind for me. That
Hmm.
same kind of story.
Yeah, that was an underrated movie.
It is an underrated movie. That's what I'll mention this week. Everyone go watch About Schmidt. It's great.
Yeah. So that's the books that I've read, and then I will I will mention, like I said, we've talked about the Nevers before,
Hmm.
and all I
Oh,
will say is
yeah, I
the
still haven't
last,
caught up, so I'm
yeah,
excited.
yeah, the last episode was a doozy. So I don't really know. I don't want to say anything because I would have been so mad if somebody had
Yes.
told me anything that would have me expecting what was going
Yes.
to happen. So
Okay,
I was not expecting it.
great.
And then I also took a look at a couple of comedies, dark comedies on HBO,
Oh.
and one is new.
Hmm.
It's Hacks with
Hmm.
Jean Smart plays a stand-up comedian who's like older,
Okay.
and she plays like big shows in Vegas, and she's uber wealthy and has been doing this for years and years,
Hmm.
decades. And then she starts like declining, because she's not as popular anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And so they get this young, like more contemporary but not successful yet female comedian to help her write.
Mm.
And so there were two episodes when I picked it up to watch it, and it's promising, I think.
Well, and that makes me think of there was that movie with Emma Thompson and Mindy Kaling, where Emma
Mm-hmm.
Thompson is, the talk show host and is kind of having the same
Yeah.
problem, and they bring Mindy Kaling in. And I really liked that movie. Um, but yeah, so it's called Hacks. I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't heard of it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's really new. They were When I watched it, they had put out two episodes, and
Okay,
then
okay,
that was it.
okay.
But it opens. I also when my attention was caught when it opens with Jean Smart, like walking through the backstage area, and it's full on like Martin Scorsese Goodfellas walking through the kitchen, like the camera's behind her, and
Yeah, yeah,
it's a it's a it doesn't cut away from her, and
yeah,
I was like, okay, well, at least it's not that hard to
yeah,
reference that, but at least
yeah.
they're maybe try to elevate this a little bit. So
Definitely.
we'll give it a shot.
Yes. Well, yeah, I'm
And
interested.
yeah, and Jean Smart has been doing so many amazing things. She's in Mayor of Easttown, which we've talked about.
Yes, that's
She
right.
plays Kate Winslet's mom.
Which
That's
they're
also a
just
great show.
they are. I don't know if I think you mentioned Mare of Easttown, and I don't remember if I said this or not, but I think that the women in that family are so perfectly cast.
Hmm.
They look like they could be related. They act like they could be related. I really like their family dynamic on Mare of Easttown.
Oh yeah, for sure. Very, very good. And then another one, which I'm not so excited about,
Mm.
is I Hate Susie, and it's not new. I think there's a couple of seasons of
Oh
it.
my gosh. Yes. Okay. I started this a while ago, like maybe
Yeah,
last year.
yeah. I think it started a couple of years ago.
Oh my gosh. And I
Eh,
feel like I feel the same way you do, just based on how you said that.
yeah. So Billy
How far are
Piper.
you?
I only watched like 3 episodes.
Okay, that's about what I did too. Okay, continue. Sorry.
Well, so it stars Billy Piper, who's the English actress who was in lots of stuff.
Yeah, I knew her from Doctor Who.
Doctor Who, yeah.
That was the big one for me.
She was one of the companions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always liked her, but in this she plays a person who was a child,
Mm-hmm.
sort of prodigy, singer
Mm-hmm.
and actress.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's sort of 40 and
Washed up, so to
a little bit
speak.
washed up,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she's got a husband and a child, and they live out in the country, but she's still doing kind of like B
Mm-hmm.
sci-fi kind of roles and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it just she's not likable, and neither is anybody else in the
And
show.
it just kept getting worse.
Yes.
It just kept going downhill. And I was
Yeah.
just kind of like, I don't need this. This is,
Yeah.
I was in the middle of COVID watching it and I
Mm.
didn't need that.
Yeah, that's how I felt about it. It was like if this was extremely witty and funny,
Mm-hmm.
and the writing was brilliant, I can
Mm-hmm.
put up with unlikable characters all
Mm-hmm.
day. But if you don't have all those things, and the person that you kind of are watching it for is playing somebody that's just unredeemable,
Yeah.
no.
No.
So,
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you felt the same way I did.
yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that you felt that way, because I thought maybe I'm just too grumpy or something.
No,
But
well, and that's the thing is it caught my attention. Like I wasn't real bored watching it. I just didn't like what they were doing. I don't know. It was just
yeah.
off-putting.
Well, so I switched that off and flipped over to something called Cinema Toast, which
Mm-hmm.
is new, and it's produced by the Duplass brothers, which we've talked about
Oh, yeah.
before. And I had no idea what to expect. Um, and I don't know that this is going to be something I'm going to be a huge fan of. But
Uh-huh.
what they do is they take old clips from movies. Like the first one is Jimmy Stewart,
Okay.
and in one of like his lesser known
Mm-hmm.
movies, and then they voice over.
Oh,
They do like a lip sync thing.
Nick would love this, I feel like.
And there's like Megan Mullally and Nick
Yeah.
Offerman and like all the like
Oh,
super funny
that's
people.
yeah.
But what with anything like that, it's hit or miss,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
because a lot of it is improvised, or it seems to be very improv
Mm-hmm.
based. And so if you're not into that, then I don't think that you would like it. But if you like improv and you like comedians just kind of freewheeling and,
Yeah. Yeah.
landing stuff here and there, but not everything,
Yeah.
then,
I'm about
then
it.
yeah, I
And
would definitely
I
check it out.
mean, have you seen like the bad lip reading stuff?
Yes.
I mean, I'm a fan of that. So,
I love those too. There's some of those that are just brilliant.
oh my gosh, I
Like
know.
the ones with Yoda.
Yes, that was
Yes.
there's one that's where he's kind of singing or he
Yeah.
starts like singing a song.
Oh, several years ago, we were doing like some stop motion programs and stuff here,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
the kids that we had at the time were super into those, and they were just
Uh-huh.
anyway,
Oh my
we were
gosh,
seeing this stuff all
yes.
the time here.
Yes. Well, there was also several years ago, a long time ago, they did a High School Musical like movie of it. Like they cut it so that it was
Yes.
maybe like 30 minutes long or something. And somebody told me to watch it. And I remember I was visiting my sister. She was at work. So it was me and her boyfriend. And we started watching it on my phone. And we didn't plan to watch the whole thing, but we ended up watching the whole thing on my phone. And we were cracking up. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, some of those are just brilliant, spot
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I really love the title. Great,
Yeah,
great play on words.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, I would check it out.
What is it on?
I think it's HBO,
Okay.
because
Okay.
I'm pretty sure,
Okay,
because
cool.
I think I just like clicked to whatever the next thing was, and that was on
Yeah.
there.
Okay, cool.
And then the last thing I'll mention are a couple of podcasts. Well, first
Yeah.
of all, one is everybody knows about is Pop Culture Happy Hour.
Yes.
And I decided to watch The Woman in the Window kind of based on their
Mm-hmm.
episode about that, because they talk about it. And they did not have a great, the review was a little bit, mixed. But I
Yeah.
still was like, I'll check it out for myself,
Yeah.
But yeah, Pop Culture Happy Hour, it's short, and
I
it's
know.
every day, isn't it? Or
I think so. I think
nearly.
they've started doing a different format because it used to
Yeah.
be like once a week, and it was longer. So yeah, I'm okay with them putting out more content because I like to hear what they have to say.
Oh yeah, yeah. You don't want to talk for an hour and a half about a single movie, or at
Right,
least most of the time.
right.
So yeah, so it seems like it was only like 15 or 20 minutes, and
Yeah,
it was good.
yeah.
And then another podcast I've only listened to a few episodes of, and they're so far they've all been good. It's called Smartless,
Hmm.
and it's Jason Bateman and Sean Hayes and one other guy who was also in the Jason Bateman show, played his brother. I can't think of his name.
um. Well, and I'm trying
Anyway,
to think of who Sean Hayes is. I know that name, and I know I'll see
from
his face.
Will and Grace,
Oh
like Jack.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay.
And so they're hilarious just on their own.
Yeah,
Obviously, Jason Bateman is a riot. Just he's so dry and
he
sarcastic.
is. I
But
love Jason Bateman.
oh yeah. And then uh I want to say Will. Anyway, I can't think of the third guy. Tina Fey was the last person that they interviewed, and so it was a really great episode of just you know four funny
Fun.
people
Yeah.
giving you like background into their careers and
Yeah.
stuff. So
Oh,
I would recommend
cool.
Smartless.
Yes, that sounds great. I'm writing it down.
And that's all I have. So, we'll I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to, again, I'm always looking forward to a weekend where I can pick up some books and watch a few things uninterrupted. So,
Yeah. I won't have one of those weekends, but I'm so glad you will.
yeah. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of looking forward to watching the next episode of Handmaid's Tale. And
Uh-huh. Yeah. That's always the mixed feelings when you
yeah,
approach Handmaid's Tale, for sure.
yeah. But they left it where like such a cliffhanger that I'm like, okay,
You have
I
to.
gotta see what happens. So, all right. Well, everybody have a great week,
Yeah.
and we'll talk to you again next Friday.
Sounds like a plan. Bye.
Bye.